There are there are stressors at every job, and I would say when it comes to being a designer, some of the stressors you may feel are the simple fact that the people you work with, your partners, like people in product, people in development, excuse me, people in the business, they don't fully understand what it is that you do as a designer.
Hmm.
Most people are kind of, and I'm sure, I mean, you probably know this as an architect yourself, but most people have like the vision of the end goal in mind. And so they really heavily attach their knowledge of what we do as a designer to the end result, to the end product. So
Yeah.
it does create this situation where they think you're just there to make pretty stuff. They think you're just there to make it look good. It's like, well, no, it's a
Yeah.
strategy for us to even get to that point. And that's where the bulk of our work is.
Hmm.
Trying to understand what's in your head, trying to solve the problems you have, but it's a collaborative thing, and it's not a, oh, go off and do this and then you come back with the final product. Like that's not how this works.
Yeah.
Um, so that manifests itself into actual comments where people might say, "Oh, just oh, you'll make it look pretty.
Yeah.
You go off and do what you do. Your magic." Listen, well, no, the magic includes you. Like it
Yeah.
includes you. So yeah, that happens, and then there are people who are from an age gap perspective that you're going to deal with who just are not very savvy in terms of using technology. And
Mm.
I'm talking just like even from their Microsoft suite options
Yeah.
of things. So that happens a lot. And so you have to plan for for that type of person. So what can that look like? Well, in a situation where a company is a Microsoft company, so they use Microsoft 365 or some shit, I think it was called 365. And depending on the size of the company, you might use some additional Microsoft products that other people in the company might not. For example, there's something called Microsoft Stream. That's kind of like their version of Loom and Zoom
Hmm.
together, right? Well, when you record something on Stream, you have the ability to record your screen, other windows, things like that. Well, what happens is once you're done, it creates a stream file. And then there's another product called Microsoft Lists, where effectively you can create playlists of videos or other pieces of information. And so in my case, I said, all right, I built a chat bot and I want to record myself walking through the chat bot so that way people can hear,
Yeah.
actually see me interact with it, right? So I recorded like 9 videos. And then what I did was I put all 9 videos in a playlist. And then what I did was I took the link to the playlist and emailed it out. So the problem is though, when people were clicking on the link, they weren't given access to view the 9 videos. They were given access into the list, but they couldn't view the videos, which to me made no sense.
Yeah.
Now they have an extra layer where you have to go in and individually invite people so that they can view the video.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what had to happen. And so that popped up out of nowhere, just caused a lot of frustration. I can't see it. I can't see it. It's like, yo, just request for access, guys. Like, it's not that big a deal. So,
Yeah.
like, you're gonna find that there's all types of personalities. They're all different levels of skill set as far as technically. Um, but you just have to anticipate and try to keep a level head and just understand, all right, it's my job to help make things easier in all facets, whether I'm designing a product for a client or a customer, or I'm working with my partners. Like I have to try and make it
Mhm.
as easy as possible. So it's easier said than done, but
So they don't question you.
yeah, that is definitely something that you're gonna have to, you know, handle.
Yeah.
But
No, very similar work environment.
I figured, I mean, it's like, you know what it is, man. It doesn't change, it's just a different medium and different output that you're giving out. But as far as the experience and Tell me about see, and this is why, like, I try to get people to understand, like, you've been in these same situations. It's just not actually quote unquote designing. But
Mhm.
all those, tell me about a time when everybody practically has those
Yeah.
in their past previous work experience. So
Mhm.
that's why I always try to tell people to just really be as confident as possible, especially walking into interviews, because all those scenario-based behavioral type questions, you've been through them all. Like, you've been through all that. Now
Yeah.
it's just tie that to the experience you have designing a product for a client. So you marry those two experiences of yours. So
Mhm.
in this case, when it comes to the Axis performance stuff, right? Well, what you're doing is you're designing on the same parallel track as I am. So the deadlines, all that sort of stuff that we're hitting, you're hitting. So you're able to feel like, all right, how fast we're turning stuff around for this Axis performance stuff. It's
Mhm.
possibly how fast, or I may need to go faster depending on the client you have. But this
Yeah.
is the type of speed that you can sort of expect in the real world, especially if you're going down like an entrepreneurial slash consultant type route. I would say startup feels fast like this.
Yeah.
Enterprise is a little slower. There's a lot more bureaucracy and things that you have to get approved and all that. So things might take longer. Like,
Yeah.
to put things in perspective, I thought I was going to be done with this chatbot business July 12th, and here we are.
Yeah.
So, that sort of stuff that happens. So you just can't take it personally. Just do whatever you can to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row, cover your ass between all your emails, any output that you're sending out, documents. Hey guys, here's the most recent documentation. I need everybody. You tag people in the email. I need these 3 people to go ahead and review this and tag this, blah blah blah, so that way you have all that in writing and can't nobody come back and be like, well, why did we get held up? Well, we got held up because nobody responded to this email or this side chat right here.
Yeah.
I said that we should have gotten this approved. So it's now the question is on you over here. Hey, how come we didn't get this? I see Everett did this.
Yeah. It's
So
I think it comes with every
mhm,
collaborative environment.
it does.
It's I mean, it sounds almost exactly the same because I mean,
Yeah.
we got civil engineers waiting on us.
Hmm.
We're waiting on landscape architects. It's
Hmm.
it's a collaborative effort, but man,
Yep.
like having to deal with that many people is
Yeah.
it's tough when they don't want to be dealt with. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So yeah, it's I tell you, man, it's this job. I mean, really any job is more of a people job at the end of the day. Like,
Yeah.
the people are gonna be your biggest obstacle, not the work itself. Like,
Yeah.
and that's what I've always told people. I'm like, I mean, the work really isn't that hard. Like, as a designer, it's really not, right? But it's the people. Everybody has their own motives, their own missions, their own goals. They have their own pressures and stressors on them. So being navigating that is the hardest part.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. I agree.
but anyways, man. So what's been going on? What you've been working on with this Access performance stuff?
So prototyping. I
Yeah.
uh I haven't done it since I've done that
Uh-huh.
boot camp at the end of or the beginning of this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to like brush up, watch a couple of videos. And
Yeah.
even then, I don't there were things that just weren't working correctly.
Yeah. I mean, that
Um
happens.
and then like I see some things work on accident, but I don't know how it was working.
Right.
Um so like I'll show you some examples.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Wix was a pretty, I guess, big learning curve. Super difficult, but like I'm still working on putting the prototype
Mm-hmm.
in Wix because I have the images on there. But now I guess it's like I still have to watch videos on how to use Wix.
Wix. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Um, so I'm still in the process of doing the Wix preview, but
Mm-hmm.
I was playing with it, tried some options. I did that overlay, but when I ran it through that the something aim.
The
So we can
contrast
do
checker.
contrast. I think it was on the AAA I kept failing, so I had to go with like a darker
Well,
overlay.
triple A is okay to fail,
Right.
but
But you
double A isn't.
said like double A, like you're good to go.
Yeah,
Uh,
double
and
A
then
is the standard.
triple A is like playing it safe.
Double A, you're playing it safe. It's
Mhm.
rare that you can get tripped up on double A, but it can happen, but it's rare. But like if you want to be ultra careful, then triple three comes in. But see, the problem with triple A, my bad, is that can drastically change your color palette. Like
Okay.
it can
And
drastically
I
change it.
noticed it. Absolutely.
And that's why I'm saying it's not required.
Right.
Double A is required.
Okay.
So that double A, you could stick as close to your color palette that you
Mhm.
created, but triple A, it's going to darken it. It's going to change it.
Okay. Yeah. AAA changed it quite a bit. I'm not gonna update that. I got rid of the boxes, took out that background on the what's it called? The carousel.
Mm-hmm.
Shortened the text, and then I was playing with less text or
Mm-hmm.
smaller text. Especially when I started working on the mobile
Mm-hmm.
mockup, because that text was huge.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I think it was this image when it started, like when that AAA was starting to get me.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is me just I was
Turn
playing with the
around.
different locations and then different layouts for the carousel with the box in the back that went, or I guess like a banner behind it.
Yep. Yep.
The different locations for the text in this image. Overall, I thought this was the best location away from the image.
Yeah, I like that
So
one.
it's kind of like background space. This, I was just playing with the gradients.
Yeah, like I said, it looks like you did gradient on that, and I mean, I want to say that that's what Lifetime did. Like Lifetime has a gradient. It seems like it goes from the top to
Top and
bottom. The
bottom.
top is at 0%, and then the bottom is the 100% black or whatever.
Also, it's one gradient.
That's what it looks like to me.
Okay.
If I go
Yeah, I think I
maybe
got it in the
into
inspiration.
inspiration page, and yeah, I mean they definitely have overlay on top of it. Yeah, so it looks like that what they did is it's definitely a gradient. What it
Mhm.
looks like they have is like at the top and the bottoms has black color, and then towards the middle it's going towards like a 0%.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what
what
it
I
looks
did
like.
with mine.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Just to play with
Yeah, I
it.
see it. Uh-huh.
This one I did like a radial
Mm-hmm.
gradient. Again for the same purpose, just to show the text.
Mm-hmm.
But then this one was a linear, so it's in the middle 0,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think 70% on the top and bottom. And then this was just like a different. I was looking at Equinox, and they just did. I was trying to do something similar to theirs, because I was having issues with
Text being
before.
legible.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and so I did it this way.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Um, but ultimately, in the mock-up, I went with uh,
This.
yeah, with this layout. So using large images on a web page like a cop out?
Mm.
Like it felt like, I guess, too simple of a design. Like, I guess not much of an effort to put in. You know what I mean?
Um, I wouldn't necessarily I wouldn't necessarily classify it like that. What I would say is, does the design fit the brand?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If the
Right.
brand is, based off of what you got, is more like showing results than telling results, right?
Yeah.
So then there goes the imagery is important. It's going to have more weight than the text itself. You see what I'm
Okay.
saying? So it's all just how you're strategically telling the story about this brand, and then
Mhm.
making having a layout that fits that. Does the brand need to say a lot? What all do they need to say outside of who they are, what their philosophy is, the testimonials of the people? Here's what you get, and then do you want to sign up?
Okay.
And then you got the chat bot that can handle any questions about the brand, any questions about Mike. Okay, well, then outside of that, what do you need? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you got to also think he's a solopreneur. It's by himself right now. He doesn't have all of what like Lifetime Fitness and Equinox have. They got hundreds and thousands of members and multiple locations, multiple
Mhm.
offerings. So they got a lot more to say. So
Yeah.
it's all catered to who your client is.
Okay. That makes sense. And then I think with this one, I was playing with smaller text.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Let's see how small is that? Let's see. That's a 20. That's a 32. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's not bad. I mean, hell, like even body copy type text is anywhere. Usually people would go from like 14 to 16. So if you're going a bigger body copy, that only helps, right?
yeah.
And then you also got to think about the age of the people that he's servicing. They're older,
Yeah.
right? So mid 30s to mid 60s. So the majority of people you're probably going to guess is in that middle range, 45, 55-ish type of
Mhm.
thing. Okay, well, their eyesight typically starts to decline. So
Yeah.
having things bigger is really not going to be a problem. The only thing I would say, you'll probably find if I click on this. So I look, the sections you have are like 960 pixels tall. That's pretty big. So what you're effectively saying is like, so let's just do some math right here. So I'm gonna put an artboard and I'm gonna click desktop. Standard is like 1440 by 1024. That's kind of like the standard biggest size.
Mhm.
Um, all right, well, what does that mean? Well, what that is a screenshot of my screen on my laptop.
Yeah.
So, all right, knowing that, how big do I want the image to be? How big do I need the header to be? And you're sizing that based off of this here. Well, do you want, what do we got? 960 was the height?
960 is what I'm using. Yeah.
That's what you're using? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is 960. All right. So what you're saying is all of that at a given time, if I just go onto the website and look at it, I'm going to see that much a picture,
Mhm.
right? Give or take a little bit, because obviously you got the header of the browser and then you got the header of your website. All right, cool. So those things combined, you're seeing how much picture or how much you're getting
Yeah.
before I scroll down to the next
Yeah.
section. So as long as you understand that and know that, then you're okay. If you're okay with a little bit of scrolling before you get to the text, because I'm looking at like, I know this style here is very much Lifetime, and Lifetime has this thing where they're aligning that text really, really close to that bottom edge like that.
Yeah.
So they're forcing you to scroll, and then they also have this hover effect over the images that kind of zooms them in. Like I don't like that, but
Oh, yeah. When you put the mouse over it,
exactly. So when
it'll
you
show them.
scroll down, I think
Yeah.
what they're psychologically what they're doing is like they're making sure you don't get bored as you're scrolling and not seeing any text and just
Mhm.
seeing a bunch of breathing room
Yeah.
and a bunch of image.
Mhm.
So they put that hover effect in there. So that way, as you're scrolling, you go, oh, okay. And then you're still scrolling and you say, oh, there's more text. Okay, cool. So like they're playing on that fact. So I would say, you know, if you're going to use motion, then that large of a space. So this space right there, right? If you have motion, then that space until you scroll and see more text, I think it's fine.
Mhm.
But when you're getting into when it's just a static image, no motion on a hover effect, you got to start thinking about like the possibility of people seeing a lot and not wanting to continue. Just to keep in mind, not saying that that's exactly what's going to happen, but
Yeah.
those are just some of the things that you want to think about when you have that amount of space.
So I was also gonna ask, do you know, I guess, like, what's the best practice when it comes to website design? Is it best to utilize the entire screen or to have it just short enough so they can see the entire section by scrolling through?
What are you referring to?
So here, let me show you because
Hmm.
I got the All right, so right now it's showing the full video because it's the first thing on this website, right?
Yep.
So as you scroll down, you
Mm-hmm.
see how it like shows just a little bit uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
of the image
And you're
where,
asking, is that okay?
yeah.
And that's what I was alluding to with the size of how
Mhm,
tall you got the sections, right?
yeah,
So, and that's why I was showing that box. I'm like, all right, well, at
yeah,
any given time, it's going to be that little bit of sliver there, right? At the bottom, right?
mhm,
That's really not much of an issue. Like, that's not an issue. Like, if people
okay,
sees, it's a design aesthetic choice on your part. Do you want people to focus section at a time, section by section? You don't want to see any bleed into the next section at any given time we're on their website. That's
uh-huh,
an aesthetic choice.
okay,
So if you're choosing to do that, that's fine. You can do that. There's a plugin, a Squarespace plugin called Snappy. And basically what it does is when you scroll, it snaps directly to the next section. So it can snap, snap, snap. You
okay,
can do that. Again, that's just a design aesthetic choice. That's so you make that call if that's something you want. But I'm telling you, you're okay if you don't have it fill the entire screen when people scroll.
okay.
You're okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that. I mean, I'd have to play with it to see if I like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
snappy effect.
Hmm.
It sounds ideal, but again, like I'd
Yeah.
have
And
to
let me
see.
show you what I'm talking about too, so that way you'll see what's up. So there's this guy, um, he makes Squarespace. He makes squares, he builds Squarespace plugins, he builds websites, and he also teaches people how to code. It's this guy named Will Myers. I've purchased Squarespace templates from him. I purchased plugins from him. Really good stuff. So this is his website. You come, this is just his courses and all that stuff. But for us, we're really concerned about the plugins. So we're going to go to see all plugins. You could also go to his plugin store. That's where we're on. And so what I like, he has these animated GIFs that show you like just what you're buying. In this case, he has a snappy. We're looking
Man,
for the snap.
$25 for a plugin?
Yeah.
At normal?
Yeah. There's people who charge more than that. I mean, Ghost plugins, the one I go to, they charge their premium is $25. I think the most I've seen is like $50. You can find free plugins, $5, $10, 25. Like 25 is kind of like standard. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, $20.
And this is just to like save time?
So, well, this is for the effect. So what we're coming up on it. So let me show you this. So remember I told you how
The zoom in when you
to
hover?
zoom in? Yep. So you go to see demo, this.
Oh,
So
that's a
this
lot.
effect, to be able to do that,
Yeah.
that's what this plugin is allowing you to do.
Okay.
So Will Myers and Ghost plugins is where I go for my plugins. I've gone other places, but these two are the most consistent, and they are specifically dedicated for Squarespace.
This is the free plugin library.
So yeah, that was the free one. This is the paid one. And you see $20, $30,
Yeah.
15. Like that's pretty standard. But all this stuff you can incorporate into your site. Scroll progress bar. Here it is, snappy right here. So you see what's happening.
Yeah.
So you can do that using this plugin. And then here's the live demo.
I don't know. It looks better for since I'm using large images.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's an aesthetic choice, completely
Yeah.
up to you. So and then to the snappy effect, that can easily be mocked up or easily be prototyped in Figma.
Okay.
Like people have Figma tutorials to create that snappy scroll effect.
Yeah.
So you could easily replicate that, build that out, prototype it in Figma. And then when you go to build it in Wix, now again, that's in Wix. That's if you choose to keep going down the Wix route. I'm
Yeah.
sure Wix has a way to do it. Again, I'm not an expert on that. I'm more a Squarespace person.
Hmm.
But Squarespace, I think even some of the templates that Squarespace has, you can turn that snappy feature on and off. So you may not even need to pay for a plugin. So it just depends. But
Yeah.
if not, you know where the plugin is and what they look like. So which one is kind of like your final?
So, uh, yeah, the final mockup I have is
Hmm.
this one here for the desktop mockup,
Okay.
and then this is the mobile, the final mockup down here.
Okay. So typically we want to, keep them close.
Okay.
So that way, so this is typically how you would, kind of lay out your stuff. And then what I would do is, right, option one, option two, just kind of help with the presentation of your work and
Okay.
organizing it for other
Yeah.
people to see it. And this is why, like, I always have a playground page in my file. So I'll put like all the shit I'm exploring and playing
Yeah.
around with in that page, and then I put the polished versions in the actual pages. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's just something to keep in mind. I'm gonna delete these other two here, but let's say you're designing page by page, the home page, right? And then if let's say you were designing the next page, right? So this was an about page. All right. Well, you would copy over both the mobile and the web, right? And so this one is now going to be the about page. And then I do another page. You see what I'm saying? So that's
Mhm.
that's how you would, like, in a professional setting when you're designing out multiple screens for flows, right? If you're designing for both web and mobile, you keep your web and mobile artboards next to each other, like how we have here. And then you just go page by page, and then you just make sure you name your pages and everything like that. And that's how you basically would set your workspace up in a professional setting. And the reason why you want to have it like that too is because there will be times, like especially if you're in corporate setting, where you may start out as the designer on this project, and they may put you on another project. All right, well, you want to make sure that your design file is organized to where, all right, the
Mhm.
designer that's going to come up behind you, he can take over your file and read it and understand what you did, all the decisions that were made, and where he's leaving off or where he's taking off from. And then that person, or he or she, could take off from. And then they could just make a copy of your file, and then they'll start version 2 and just keep it going. So you'll have your version as your archive, right? You might see some movement in it or some activity in it for a couple weeks, but then that new designer following up after you should make a new file and
Mhm.
continue it on. That's why it's important to clean up your workspace, organize your stuff, because you don't know, you might be passing this work off to another designer.
Yeah. No, it's the same in architecture.
Gotcha. From the mobile side, before I make an assumption, let me see what you did. Couple things going on here. There's inconsistencies with the spacing. And this is why the spacing exercise in the toolkit is important, because what you'll get to see is like the margins on from a mobile perspective, what they look like. And you'll see that the margins typically on mobile devices are anywhere between like 16 and, well, I take that back. Some people can go 12, but typically 16 to 24 pixels margins. So right now we're looking at it. This also tells me you're not really following like a base unit for your grids. You're not
Mhm.
really using spacers. So this one, I think I was mentioning last time, is like if you're going to use a base unit of 8, 4, 5,
Yeah.
whatever it is, you got to pick it and stick to it. And right
Mhm.
now it looks like you're just kind of eyeballing things. So I would say definitely pick whatever it is and stick to it. Let's see here. Same thing with this over here. Okay, what's your margin for your desktop? Is it, if I come over here, I'm gonna take this desktop, obviously is bigger, right? But
Yeah.
again, it's an aesthetic choice. You'll see what people use different sizes all the time. So here, this could be 16, 40, right? 48, 56 is whatever it is, stick to it. So right now, based off of this, it looks like your margins are 64 pixels. All right, that's fine. Let's come over here to the right. And you have actually only a little bit off, just 5 pixels.
And
But
so how do you determine the desktop and mobile
Was
margins?
it's a you make it up thing. You make it up. So if you look at everybody's margins on their websites are different. Like some
Yeah.
people may be 100, some people may be real close to the edge. It's you decide what it is. But again, as I
Right.
mentioned, you decide it and then you stick with it. So whatever you pick, stick with that bad boy.
All the way through the
All the
page.
way through your design should be. So for
Okay.
example, let's go to
Like if there's multiple pages, it's the same margin in every single one.
base units. Basically helps unify your design and make it clean, right?
Mhm.
Now, typically the most commonly used is a 4-point or an 8-point grid. So what that means is you're using spacers, multiples of 8 or 4. I've seen people go down as 2. I've also seen people come up with a creative one, basically using the Fibonacci sequence or the golden ratio. Whatever you choose, stick to it. And so what typically happens now, 4 gives you more flexibility. Obviously you get the same as an 8-point grid, but then you get extras. So you get
Yeah.
4, 12, 20, all that. This is really good for applications that has a lot of data or a lot of text or information that they're trying to cram
Mhm.
into the screen. So if we're looking at here, this is using a 4 and 8-point grid. This is Amazon review card where they have a star, text, and then, but you're seeing it's a lot of little intricacies, a lot of little elements in here that they're
Yeah.
jam-packing in here. So they're going to use the 4-point grid because you can get closer,
Mhm.
excuse me, and create uniformity with that smaller point grid versus this one here is just using 8. So it's going to be a little bit bigger spaces in between. All right. So using the space is key here because you kind of see you're using space to create relation between information. So to chunk information together, obviously the way we perceive things, if things are closer, that means y'all are related. That means this piece of information or this element is related to this one if they're close. But if they're further apart, then obviously they're not related. So this comes back full circle when it comes to your design, right? Because whatever point grid system you're using in your design, stick with that. And then so everything should be spaced and sized using whatever grid you used. This is why that spacing activity is critical.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say like clean up the spacing. Whatever you decide your base unit is, run with it. Like I said, the most standard is 4 or 8-point. 4 is easiest because it has everything the 8 points in it. So you get more flexibility with 4. So I would say, go with the 4-point grid here and then make sure everything is sized. And when I say size, so like even your text sizes should be in your base unit size,
Mhm.
right? So you have it at 32, so you're good there. This one's 20, that's good there because it fits the 4, right? So you decide what that is, but it looks like you already got a good handle. It's just refining it. That's
Yeah.
all we're doing here. So yeah, I would say just refine both of these designs and make sure they're good and aligned with what you want. Prototyping the functionality you'd like for the website to have within Figma. I would say that should be our next priority. Now we're getting to the nitpicky parts because this is I mean, sure you know in design, like
Yeah.
the critiques we're going to get down to the nitty gritty. Oh, this is moved over by 7
Yeah.
pixels and stuff.
Yeah.
So making sure that all that is picture perfect, and that's where the alignment of your grids and all that shit comes in handy.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say just this part that we're doing now, making sure everything works fine, looks fine when you prototype it, everything's aligned up. Once you have that, all right, let's try and rebuild it in Wix. And then you're good to go there. I will also email you because I got the FAQs. Well, actually, hold up. We'll slow down. Let's get through the website stuff first before we then jump into voice flow.
Yeah.
So this week, I would say let's tighten up the design as far as the pixel perfect stuff in both of your designs. And then make sure that your prototype in Figma is solid for both web and mobile. And then once we have that, then move on to Wix, trying to replicate as much as you can in Wix. There will be some differences, right, based off of what you can do in Wix and what's on your design. There may be, the goal is to not have any deviation. We want it to be one-to-one,
Yeah.
but we all know that that's not going to be realistic 100% of the time. So keep that in mind once you go from your Figma prototype to trying to rebuild it in Wix. You may not get, 100% accurate as your design. So just keep that in mind. The most important thing is the prototype in Figma, because we can take that and put that on your case study in your portfolio. So push kind of sub, we don't even have to. I just want you to build this site for practice in Wix, so that way you get the feel for Wix. And then the next case study, you can say, all right, well, I'm going to try maybe Squarespace. And then that way you got both Wix and Squarespace under your belt, and you can kind of see which one you like more.
Okay. Cool.
All righty, man. Well, that's it. That's all I got for you. I'll see you next week.